I am Sanchia, and welcome to Be Still and Grow, a space for honest conversations about faith, growth, and becoming who God designed us to be. Here, we slow down to listen, to reflect, and lean into the lessons hidden in life's transitions. Whether we're navigating change, waiting on a promise, or walking through pruning seasons, remember, growth isn't about striving, it is about surrender. Each week, we'll explore real stories, biblical insights, and gentle reminders to trust God's plans, even when it doesn't make sense. So take a deep breath, be still, and let's grow together. I love having you here. We'd like to hear some of your stories. See you. Tell us about yourself.
Okay, so I'm gonna start from college because then
Okay.
I think
Your life didn't start up from college.
no, it didn't, but my career, I mean, you probably know from high school stuff, growing up in Hope Bay. Um,
No, I want to know. Okay, I want to know from the time you thought about becoming a scientist.
okay,
Yeah.
so I want to be a scientist since I was about 12 or 11. And true story, the reason why I want to become a scientist specifically, I wanted to go into neuroscience. Of course, in Jamaica, you growing up, you only had two professions basically, a lawyer or a doctor. That was that your parents tell you basically. In my hometown, that was it.
Hmm.
So I just had this fascination with the brain because I'm like, man, everything that we can perceive about life and our environment, it's like the brain that controls everything. And I'm like, I want to do something with the brain when I grew up. And that
Hmm.
was literally how my dream of becoming a scientist started. Didn't know how I'm gonna do it, but it just had this thing inside of me. Like, man, I used to look at lizards in the trees because it's like, as a kid, we used to take the bone from the coconut leaf,
Hmm.
and make a little simple knot and like hook the lizard from the tree and stuff and catch them.
Hmm.
And then I'm like, man, this is pretty cool. And like look at the lizard how they can climb on the tree, they can jump, do all these different things, change color if you hit them too hard, all them different things. I'm like, this is pretty cool. And it's all come from the brain. So that's why I was saying when you talk about come from the heart, I don't really believe that because that's a heart that pump blood. That's about it for me. But
Hmm.
everything you perceive in the environment is from the brain. Neurotransmitter, synaptic transmission, everything. And at like 11, 12, I kind of had some understanding of this, and I'm like, I want to become something like in the neuroscience. So then when I went from Hope Bay Hall at school to Titchfield, finally was in 3's2. Then I would work my
Oh,
work
you started Teachfield at third form
third
as
form.
well?
Yes,
Me
correct.
too.
Yes,
Me
because
too.
you're in 3X.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're in the same class with like Jason Panton.
Hmm.
I almost didn't get in the teach field because when I was in Hope Bay School, I couldn't take the common entrance because I didn't have any birth certificate, so I couldn't take common
Mm.
entrance.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it wasn't until I got into Shield by taking the technical exam.
Grade nine.
No, not grade
Technical.
nine. I didn't make it to grade nine in Hope Bay School. I took the technical exam. So there
Okay.
was there was common entrance,
Hmm.
technical, then
And
grade
then grade
nine.
nine. Okay,
Right.
okay.
So I took technical exam when I was in grade seven, didn't pass, and then I took it again in grade eight, and I passed. So like go to like Kingston Technical, St. Thomas Technical, like school like that
Oh,
one. But
right,
I
right.
couldn't. It was too far away. Couldn't go there. And there was and this lady from Hope Bay, her son or nephew was in Miss Cherry. Her nephew was in threes, was going to be in 3's2,
Hmm.
but he was going to migrate and come to the US. So when I passed technical exam, I want to teach you. Initially, I talked to Mr. Tax. He says, like, we don't have any space for you. You passed technical exam. You can't get in, blah, blah. I'm like, oh my God. Trying to think what am I do? Couldn't afford anything. So then Miss Cherry knew about the situation and she was on the PTA board and she told Mr. Taxter, hey, I have my nephew's leaving and I have somebody who can replace him in third form. Can you
Mm-hmm.
go? So she said, please, you and your mom, get you all your grades together, everything, and go back to him and talk to the taxi. I already put in the word ready for you. Go back to him and talk to him. I went to this man in what you know, walking in the office where Mr. Randy used to be, where Alfred used to sit right there, past
Mm-hmm.
Alfred, go into
Oh
the
my
office.
God.
Exactly. And this man looked at me and looked at my grades and said, you know what? He said, Mr. Nelson, you know, if I look at your grades before, I'd have accepted them. Like, are you kidding me? Because I had like a bunch of A's, all A's, and I passed technical exam. So okay, that's how I went to teach field. So I went to teach field in normally you would not go to like a 3 2, you go to 3x.
Mm-hmm.
But 3x was full and there was a space in 3s too, and that's why I got in 3s too.
Okay, okay.
Because I never went from first form, second, like you know,
Right, right.
first, second, no, I was already third form. And so that's why I ended up in third form.
Okay.
And then when I went to my third form, I was doing pretty good in the class. So I think the first semester or the half of the semester, I think midterm, I got fourth overall. It was, I never forget it. It was Listen, Michael, Sherry Shaw, and I got fourth in the class.
I don't even remember. Maybe I came first. I don't remember.
Yeah, but I remember that. And then in the finals, I think it was Michael, Sherry's, and then I got third.
Okay.
So
I
Listen
don't
drop off.
remember.
Yeah,
I
Listen
don't
drop off
remember.
because yeah,
But
she did
all of us ended up in for science.
exactly. So I worked because the goal was to get into sciences. So I was really
Mhm.
really hard. And I can tell when I went in the threes too, I was an outcast because I didn't know anybody other than
We were the outcast.
exactly. But I was in a
We were,
class
we were X.
3x exactly. But the crazy part was you guys are all new to 3x. I was the only new person in
Yeah.
threes too because everybody come from first and second form.
Right.
I was and so
Right.
nobody other than David Nalty from Hope Bay, I knew nobody. So they give me a hard time. Like every time I did an exam and I got more than like Michael or Sherry or listen, they'll take my class, my grade and look at it. Oh, you made a
Yeah.
mistake. How can this blah blah? And they try to get me to take less points and all sort of different things.
Well, in third form, I got the highest grade in math overall, and
Oh
it
wow.
was chaos.
Yes, yes. And then when I look at grade and I said, this you can't. And anyway, so I was able to initially, finally I became friends with like, the guys in threes too, like Gally. In third form, our crew was David Nalty, Michael, myself, and Ricardo Bryan. Remember Ricky, the Indian guy from the Anatomy
Oh
wins that
yeah,
year.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Ricky, yeah, yeah.
You
It
still
was
in touch with him?
we're friends on Facebook, and I see
Oh,
what is going on, so we touch base every now and then.
okay.
Yeah. So then I was like, you know what? One day I remember I was walking up in front of the football field, and me and Michael went, Michael, you know what? I want to do something in neuroscience, and he wanted to become like a neurosurgeon. That was his thing.
Yeah, I remember something
Right?
like that. Hmm.
Right. And I'm like, but I want to do something in sciences, and I think I want to do something with the brain. But of course, they didn't know how I'm going to do it. But anyway, I end up in four science, then five science, and you know, then most of us we took like math, and so by the time I was in fifth form, I took math and technical joinery. I had those already by fifth form. He
Hmm.
probably did the same thing too. Blah blah. Then got into sixth form, and we did our graduation in 1998. We already did 98, remember? But it was
Hmm.
spent 2 more years, so we did all that stuff, and then to come to the US again. I got into Aquas. Couldn't even afford Aquas.
Okay, stick a pin. So you lived with your mom
Yes.
and dad?
No, only my mom.
That's your
So,
mom.
and it's something that I think a lot of people didn't realize. So even when I was in third form, fourth form, and fifth form, I didn't have running water, electricity, none of that stuff. No current in my house. Gas lamp,
Really?
maize, kerosene lamp, everything. But when I come to school, trash and what?
Hmm.
Many times I went to school, sometimes it was just money for my bus fare. Like seriously,
Wow.
you guys didn't even know this.
No.
But exactly, it was until '98 when we first got current in our house in Jamaica.
Wow.
'98, I was supposed to graduate. We
Hmm.
lived in a house that was probably the size of your restroom in your house now. You didn't know this.
No.
That was the size of my house, but you guys nobody knows this.
Hmm.
Well, other than like David Dalton's other people, but I lived like I was like didn't have any money. Like we were poor with my mom. But then in '98, my stepfather travel
You,
and go
you
on a
just
ship.
stick a pin. Stick a pin. So we're talking about living from the inside out. You were living from the inside out from then.
Yeah, yeah,
You
of
know,
course.
it wasn't about your outer circumstances or situation. You were
Never.
living from your inside out.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So then when my stepfather finally was able to travel, in a shippy, right? We call him a shippy in Jamaica. So he worked on a ship, and then by that way, he was able to afford us. So we moved from that little house to a bigger house in Union, and we lived at the house my stepfather still at the house now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my mom separated eventually and different things, but he's still at the house. So that's when I was able to get my own room. We had current and all the different things and all the cool stuff. That was about in 90, end of 98,
Mm-hmm.
when I was in sixth form.
Okay.
So then finally in lower six, upper six, that's when AQuest came to be. Learn about Mr. Dr. Minot, and we were doing the SAT stuff with Jason and Jenny, call them guys.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't even afford it. Finally was able to get some money from Mr. Ennis in Hope Bay because I worked on in the summer. I worked on there and to clean up the
Mm-hmm.
entire farm, all the
Mm-hmm.
coconut leaf to me and Jason Panton and
Mm-hmm.
Aaron Porn. That was my first job ever in my life. Clean up the thing, think they get a good amount of money. The man gave me like $3,000. I'm like, are you kidding me? That's like nothing. Aquas costs like 13,500 if you want to get pay for Aquas and also get SAT book. So
Mm-hmm.
I only paid the 12,000,
Mm-hmm.
and then Dr. Mike lent me the SAT book, and I never paid with whatever. It was fine. It didn't matter. Anyway, so we got into Aquas. My Aquas was fantastic. The travel go to Kingston, all the meet a lot of new people, go to Bonneview. I remember Bonneview with Dr. Minot, and that was pretty cool. And in a high school, the plan for me was to either go to England with this guy that met my family, and he was like, "I like this. I like your son. He's a pretty good guy. I want to help him out." Blah blah. Uncle Roy is a friend of our family. But then while that was going on, it was a Sunday, and I was studying for A levels, and Dr. Minot called me and said, "Hey, they're doing an interview for a college in Dallas, Texas called Paulkin. Go to Kingston right now. I already gave you some good input about you and everything. You're coming, you're a smart kid, you do all the different things, so go." Sunday evening, I didn't have no money, no car, no nothing. But the good, again, it's all about timing, right? So at that time,
Right place, right time.
yep. And at that time, I was learning how to drive with my friend called Neville from Hope Bay. And when I got the call from Dr. Myers, my mom called Neville. I said, can you take him? He was like, I'm free. And he charged like about, I think like about $2,000 then to go to Kingston. So he called him, got through to him, and he picked me up. We went to Kingston, and this was like about 3 o'clock. Interview started at 6. We made it by 5:30 because
Wow.
he was flying. And this was at the Courtly Hotel in Uptown Kingston.
Mm-hmm.
Went to the interviews, a bunch of kids from all over Jamaica that went to interview. People want to become like, doctors, lawyers, aviation, all these different type of people that were at the interview. But some of the things they're offering, what people wanted, the school didn't offer. But I want to do pre-med, which I had pre-med. So they had a big room, I'll never forget, a big room with Dr. Minot and Mr. Dunn, and they're all talking to everybody and telling about the history of the school. It's called Falcon College. It was in Waco, Texas. It moved from Waco to Dallas in 1990. The history of the school, of all the different stuff. And then at the end of the interview, Dr. Monroe said, Mr. Nelson, could you stay back with us and talk with us a little bit more about yourself? So I stayed back, spoke with him, and that was it. That was on a Sunday. And they were supposed to get back to us on Wednesday to let us know like how much people are gonna, who are gonna accept and whatever. Because they came to Jamaica to get one male and one female
Oh,
for the
wow.
for the college. Um, and I was like, okay, so that was Wednesday. Didn't hear from the college lady. That was over the stuff. Didn't hear from her. And then on Friday, I got a call at home, and it's like, may I speak to Omar? I'm like, speaking. He's like, oh, this is Dr. Monroe, and we're gonna give you a full scholarship for 4 years to come to our college, full ride,
Wow.
everything taken care of. You pay no money,
Wow.
but you have to do XYZ, like in some societies, and keep a 3.5 GPA minimum and all the different things. I'm like, oh my God. So I told my mom,
Pressure
yeah, it didn't, yeah,
already.
exactly. But it didn't even click in my mom, like, look, your son gonna be leaving like in a few months. He's
Mhm.
leaving, going to the US. And again, all about timing. At that point, my stepfather was on the ship, and we told him, hey, this is what's going on. I needed money for my to make my student my F-31, right? The student visa, plane ticket, money to spend. And I told my stepfather, and he sent me $1,000 US dollars. So I was able to like pay for everything. So then anyway, so I came up to the US in August of 2000 to go to Parkland. And they ended up accepting four people, I think. I was the only male and they're the female. So
Mm-hmm.
Yuri, Trudy, and this other girl, because she went somewhere else, she went to Morgan State. To this day, man, Yuri and Trudy are still pretty good friends. And they're both back in Jamaica now, and they're doing pretty fantastic for themselves. One is a lawyer, and they're doing good. Anyway, so I went to Paul Quinn. I was a biology major, and well, I remember when I went to Paul Quinn the first year, you had to sign up for the different classes, and they wanted to put me into physical science, which is like the basic stuff. And I'm like, I don't want to do physical science. I want to take physics. And they're like, no, freshmen are not allowed to take physics. You have to go to the physical science first. You can do the prep course.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, nah, I want to do this. And they're like, no, you have to do it. I'm like, okay, fine. So I was forced to take physical science. So I signed up for the class. I was in the class, and then the professor was Dr. Luis Saez. He's from Chile. And in the first week of taking his class, he said, yeah, you don't belong in this class. And I went to physics in my freshman year. So I took
Mm-hmm.
so I took physics my freshman year, and I ended up tutoring the entire class because I'm like, look, this I did all this stuff in high school. This is high school physics for us.
Mm-hmm.
This was my high school biology. This is my high school chemistry, like organic chemistry. I'm like, we did all this stuff already. So anyway, so because of my high school preparation from Titchfield, from Mr. Fulston, Mr. Kett, Mr. Ram, Miss Joseph, GP,
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Core, like the first like college was like not that
Breathe.
crazy. It was like
Breathe.
I can do this. Anyway, so first semester all A, second semester all A, third semester, fourth semester, all 8 semesters, all A's. Finished school in college in my class, I was number one, basically, when I finished school. And then when I was at Paulkin now with a biology major taking all these classes, they had this program that was called the Paulkin Scholars. And it basically was to they had some money, some grants to support kids from Paulkin to go
Mm-hmm.
to UT Southwestern, which is University of Texas Southwestern Medical Center at Dallas, to prep them into either become scientists or become like MDs. And I
Mm-hmm.
knew MD was not my thing.
Right.
And from straight, I'm like, nope, I don't want to go to medical school. So either do MD, PhD, or do a PhD. So
Mm-hmm.
because I was a freshman in the program, they said for you to go to the MCAT prep course now, it makes no sense because by the time you go to, if you take the course now, by the time you go to medical school, apply to medical school, your grade, your score gonna have no, it's not valid because it's not like a 3 year cutoff, right?
Oh, okay.
After 3 years, you can't use it anymore, something like that. So I'm like, okay, fine. So I want to do something in neuroscience, and they through Dr. George Ordway when he came to college to recruit and talk about the program, and he knew Dr. Dwight German that was in Department of Psychiatry that was doing things with Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I end up in that summer working. Again, remember I'm international, so I can't work off campus. So I had to get this as curricular practical training, which I got credit for it
Mm-hmm.
towards my degree.
Okay.
And it was also a paid scholarship program. So stay, find somebody to stay in the summer, worked at the University of Texas with Dr. German. For the summer, end of summer, I finished my research was actually looking at dopamine signal in the brain and dopaminergic neurons and how that can affect or lead to Parkinson's disease
Mm.
because those are cells that basically in Parkinson's disease they die. And I was use this mouse model to kind of study how these cells die and what caused them to die and different things. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
end of the cell program, I presented my like a PowerPoint talk and everything. And when I finished, they were asking, so what grade in what year in grad school you are? I'm like, no, I'm a freshman in college. I just finished my freshman year. And they were like, you're in college? I'm like, yeah. And they were like, no way. So all these guys were impressed with how I presented and everything. And at the end of the program, Dr. German says, look, you can come back in the semester and work in my lab and finish your project because I think you're a very, very intelligent guy. You work really hard. So basically, every semester from in college after my sophomore year, I'll go full time in the semester in the summer with Dr. German and part time during the semester.
Sure. Okay.
And oh my God, I had to take an hour and a half every day from campus to go to UT Southwestern.
Oh, wow.
So I had to take a bus, a train, and then a bus.
Wow.
Okay, this was like about 4 days a week. So what I had to basically schedule my classes around my lab time so I could
Mm-hmm.
actually have my class. And then there were days I missed the bus. And it's like, oh, I had to wait like another like
Like,
3 hours because it is what it is. And I get home and it's at like 8 o'clock at night. I'm just getting home. And I get home, I do my homework, do my stuff I need to do, and I'm and get stuff taken care of. So I think at that point I started learning to get good time management skill and everything. Yeah, so that's how I really end up doing exactly what I started to do. Like I was in neuroscience, I was doing what I planned to do. Life was just like, it wasn't the greatest, but it was good. And I was being surrounded by a lot of like really smart people at UT Southwestern. So then when I finished college, I'd applied to a few grad programs for neuroscience, like Baylor College of Medicine, WashU, Penn State, UT Southwestern, all these different schools. And then I got into Baylor College of Medicine, which is in Houston. I went to the interview and they actually pulled my application from the neuroscience program to the developmental biology program because they thought I was a better candidate for developmental biology with neuroscience based on my application and everything. So I
mm-hmm.
interviewed with Hugo Bellum. He's a guy who works on just after like flies, and he's important later on in the story. So I interviewed in his first program, and I got accepted to go to Baylor College of Medicine for a PhD. For PhD in the US, it's free and they pay you a stipend.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I was
Canada
like,
as well.
yeah. So I was like, this is pretty cool. So I didn't do a master's. I went from bachelor's
Okay.
to apply for PhD. So I got into Baylor. They gave me a good offer. I'm like, man, I'm in all the way in Dallas. I have no money. I know nobody in Baylor in Houston. I'd have to move this. I'm like thinking, what am I gonna do to get down to Baylor? But I'd also interviewed for UT Southwestern too. And UT Southwestern, when I interviewed with these guys that they knew of me, or some
Oh,
of them
okay.
see me
Okay.
around,
Mm-hmm.
and they were like, I thought you were a grad student already. I'm like, no, I was in college. I was never. I was just like here in Dr. German's lab. Anyway, so I got into UT Southwestern, not knowing got into UT Southwestern. So when I went to Baylor, I got Baylor interview first, and then UT Southwestern. I got into Baylor, and then realized I got into UT Southwestern, and I was like, okay, I got it. And so I turned down Baylor College of Medicine and said I'm gonna go to UT Southwestern because I knew UT Southwestern. I live in Dallas. I know the people there. I know I had somewhere to
Okay.
stay. I know everything. So I'm like, this is the best deal for me to go to UT Southwestern. So when I got in the program, you could actually, so since I was in Dallas already, you in maybe the same thing too. You have to do this thing called rotation, where you go to different people's lab
Yes.
and to pick different mentors and see which one you want to go to eventually. So because I was in Dallas, I was able to do a rotation in the summertime. So I
Okay.
rotated it in Ilya Bespersvani's lab, where I was actually studying like Huntington disease and like spinal cerebellar ataxia, these polycule disorders and everything. And that was and then they pay you the summertime. So you're there in the lab, you're actually getting a jump on people when it comes start rotating when school start. But I was rotating in the summertime. So I rotated with Ilya because I found his lab. I'm like, what he's doing is interesting. Pretty smart guy. So I did a rotation in his lab. And I really liked him. He's kind of crazy. He's a Russian guy. He's kind of crazy, but he's a really hard worker. Then I was like, I want to go to his lab. But like, yeah, if you want to go to his lab, it don't matter. You just have to do two more rotation. So to like mix things up, a lot of people go to like famous labs or where people say, I'm like, I'm not doing a famous lab. So I went to Gong Yu lab in neuroscience, a lot of protein stuff. And then I went to this guy called Leon Avery to study C. elegans, like worm. So
Mm-hmm.
we're studying worm biology to kind of figure out how You can trace because worm is pretty cool. You can knock out one cell and you can
Yeah.
trace the entire
Let me
lineage of
be
exactly
basic.
right. So I did that stuff. We tried to find revertants for different phenotypes and different things. That was pretty cool. With Gongyo was like studying how um, the gamma secretase complex, which is involved in producing A beta plaque in the brain for Alzheimer's patients. So it's gamma secretase. It's a big complex, a big machine that has different subunits: nicastrin, pen2, AF1, and presenilin. So when people talk about A beta plaque in the brain, it's because this big complex it breaks down APP, which is an amyloid precursor protein, and that's how you get A beta plaque in the brain.
Okay.
So which it's all connected, right? So I did
Mm-hmm.
that rotation. We're like, you know what? By end of December, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to Ilya's lab. Ilya's lab is a perfect fit for me. So by when people doing their third rotation, I was already in a lab,
Oh, okay.
starting my PhD
Okay.
um, career, and then it's the first year. So in the first year, you're doing rotation, you're taking classes, schedule balance, all these different things. So uh, by that time, I'm like, okay, neuroscience is what I'm gonna do. So then I start get my project up and running, which is studying in Alzheimer's disease and studying the role of calcium signaling in Alzheimer's disease.
Okay.
Specifically, I was like looking at how this. So this I mentioned to you about the complex that's in Alzheimer's disease called gamma secretase complex,
Mm-hmm.
which cleave the amyloid precursor protein to make A beta plaque in the brain. So we've discovered that in this complex of these four different protein, that presenilin is also a calcium channel,
Mm-hmm.
which is like big deal. It took a long time to publish it, but it got published in Cell. And I was like, and the rule was if you publish a first author publication, you can graduate. So I
Mm-hmm.
got the Cell paper, and I published my first JCI paper by third year, and I'm like, okay, I'm out. Plus, I have some other publication from when I was in undergrad. And I was like telling Ilya, I'm ready to go. And he's like, Omar, you're not ready for the real world in science. Stay a little bit longer and learn the politics, all the stuff you need to learn. And I was like, no, like, and he's like, no, you're not going.
The bureaucracy.
Exactly. And the committee member was like, yeah, you're not ready. You don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, ah. So yeah, I ended up staying until 4.5 years. So in 4.5 years, I got my PhD basically at UT Southwestern. And the average person at UT Southwestern take about 5.5 years to get a PhD, right? And I was able to get out like in a little bit over 4.5 years.
I,
I was mentored. I mean, I was taking classes with Tom Sudoff, who ended up winning Nobel Prize. He was at UT Southwestern, and I know Tom Sudoff. I took his classes. I know Al Gilman, the late Al Gilman, Nobel laureate. Bronan Goldstein, like all those guys are from UT Southwestern. Jerry Shea. I mean, these guys are like some the top scientists in the world. And I took those guys' classes or knew of them or in the same lecture or with them and stuff. It was pretty cool.
mhm,
So then at the end of my grad school before graduation, I want to do a postdoc. But I was like, one, I want to be close to Jamaica. So that's why I ended up in Miami. But
mm,
how I got to Miami was when I was in finish up, one of the guys in my department, Robin Heisinger, Dr. Heisinger, he did his postdoc with Hugo Bellum at Baylor College of Medicine.
mhm,
And one of his postdoc um, part friends that were there with him was Grace Zai, and she lived in Miami. And
mm.
she had a lab at the University of Miami. And I was like, I I really wanted to get my postdoc in a field where I didn't feel like I was strong enough, and that was for me was genetics.
Why
And
why
also,
did you want to do that?
oh right, because one of my goals was probably to go back to Jamaica, and but my dream was to go back to Jamaica and start a lab there or something like that. So Grace was working with C. elegans. I mean, with just with flies. So
Hmm.
flies don't let have maintenance. You just need food, you let a valve to put them in to grow them, and they can breed and you can simple. Not like if you work with like rats or mice, it's like very
Hmm.
expensive to work
Hmm.
with them.
Yeah.
But
Hmm.
Drosophila, you can do neuroscience stuff and you can have a very cheap way to maintain them and everything, inexpensive to maintain
Okay.
them. That's one, and then two, I'll get to learn how to do improve my genetic skills because there's a lot of stuff I didn't understand about like fiber biology. I'm like, I want to do that. So based on that, I went to University of Miami. I did a postdoc interview, and they were like, "This guy with dreadlocks, whatever. I don't think he's a smart guy." When I gave my talk and my presentation, they were like mind blown about my knowledge, and they're like, "Yeah, the postdoc is yours." And on top of that, we're going to give you a grant for the first year. I'm like, okay. So I left from Miami, moved to, I left from Dallas, moved to Miami, started my postdoc. I was in a fly lab in 2009 until 2012. And then, no, 2011. And then in 2011, the lab I was in ran out of money. And I was just at that point, just like, I guess I was just like burnt. I felt burnt out a little bit.
Mhm.
And was and I just started running at that point in time. So because I was stressed out. So at about 2011, I found this running group in Miami called iRun. Started running. The lab ran out of money, and I was like, you know what? I need a break. So I took a year off from research. Like, no, not making any money, just doing like odd jobs, working in the restaurants, doing like promotional work, whatever I could do to pay my rent, basically. So I did that for a year. Um, and that's when I end up like uh, pacing like Serena Williams. I know Danny was from New Kids on the Block. I would help him to train for the Boston Marathon. I was doing some crazy stuff, learning like 7 marathons in 7 days, doing 31 half in 31 days. I was running my age in miles, like crazy stuff to raise funds for charities and doing all this different stuff.
Mm.
Right? So
No,
because and I picked up running because I was just stressed out. I was like, I need something to get my mind off the stress. And so I picked up running and I became
I, mm-hmm,
yeah, and
mm-hmm.
I became pretty good. I mean, I wasn't really, and it's mainly distance running, like running marathons and 5K and stuff. And I have many medals and winning races and age grouping and stuff. And yeah, I became all right. So then that was for
Wow.
1 year, and then I'm like, okay, I need to start making real money now because I got to take care of my kids and everything. So then there was an opening at University of Miami in Jennifer Hu's lab, and she was looking for somebody to that honest have a neuroscience background.
Biology.
Yeah, I'm gonna get to I'm gonna segue to cancer biology. So then uh they wanted somebody that was good looking for somebody who knew neuroscience and who want to maybe merge neuroscience with cancer. Why?
Mm.
Because in cancer there's a lot of people who have like surgery who
Mm-hmm.
will have neuropathic pain for like the rest of their lives, right?
Mm.
So when they brought me in was to kind of look at these different biomarkers
Mm-hmm.
to figure out, can we find a biomarker? Why is it that African Americans or whites have different pain tolerance and what's going on?
Mm.
So I was brought into Jennifer Hu's lab to kind of fuse neuroscience with cancer, right? Again, women who have mastectomy, even though they have like no breast, they will have like phantom limb issues and they'll have like pain and all these different things. Some women who do radiation, some of them get really bad burn from the radiation, and some would not. So, is there like a biomarker who can predict who will get burned, not burned, different things? So, I was brought in for that one. So, we did some stuff with like with C-reactive protein, hydroxy-DG, and we found that basically that women who have elevation in these inflammatory signals and DNA damaging um, pathway, they're more predisposed to having these burns or experience neuropathic pain, specifically in non-Hispanic white and
Mm-hmm.
African Americans.
Mm.
So that's what I discovered. Paper got published, and then I was coming to an end of that training, and then Dr. Sophia George was coming from Canada to set up a lab at University of Miami. I think I told before she's friends with Simonet, and she's looking for somebody to help her set up her lab. And Simon said, "Hey, Omar, go talk to this lady. She's coming in." So of course I went up to her lab and we spoke, and she's like, "What do you want to do in your future?" I'm like, "I don't know. I know I just want no, I just want a job right now." And she's like,
Mm.
"Okay, fine. So you can help me set up my lab, and we can go from there." So I left Jennifer Hu and went to Sophia George, and at that point is when we're realizing that the cell of origin for ovarian cancer is actually in the fallopian tube. This was
Right.
like new knowledge at that point in time.
Right.
So when
Right.
I was brought in, I was brought in to help her to basically go and consent patients in the hospital,
Mm-hmm.
go in the operating room. When the fallopian tube comes out, collect fallopian tube, take them back to the lab, and grow the cells from the human, from the patient, grow the cells, and understand the biology of the fallopian tube.
Wow.
So, so that's how I went into understanding the fallopian tube and
Mm-hmm.
working with fallopian tube cells. I mean, University of Miami is like three different hospitals. It's like University of Miami, there's Jackson, and there's this other smaller hospital where all the rich people go. So, and the rule is every operating room have a different scrub color. So some days I'm constantly patient in all three different hospitals. I'm running all over the place. And I have to be like having scrubs in my bag. I have to change scrubs to
Oh
and
yeah.
enter the room and suit up and put on the specific gear and everything. And man, those were fun days because it was pretty awesome. I pulled it off. Like some I have like three patients and so I get to know all the surgeons and everybody get to know who I am and all different things. Like then I will take the cells and go back to the lab, set up cultures, infect them with different cancer genes like P53, BRC, BRCA, the BRCA gene and everything. So I was doing all those different things. And and specifically in Sophia's lab, I was looking at how the importance of the antioxidant pathway is important in cancer because the antioxidant pathway is what uses antioxidant gene to protect our cells from these DNA damaging compound, which we call reactive oxygen species. They
Mm-hmm.
can come from the environment, they can come from your food, they can come from sun exposure to radiation. So how does all these different factors affect your antioxidant pathway? Because if you don't have that pathway, you can't protect your DNA from getting damaged,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we brought in to understand how these antioxidant genes is actually linked to cancer specifically in the fallopian tube because the fallopian tube have two different cell type. There's secretory cells and there's slated cells.
Mm-hmm.
And what we found was basically that the slated cells, they had a better antioxidant gene pool compared to the secretory cells. So
Mm-hmm.
because the secretory cells can protect themselves from DNA damage, for example, whenever a woman goes through ovulation, there's a lot of cytokines and reactive oxygen species get released in the fallopian tube
Mm-hmm.
that can damage the cells.
Mm-hmm.
So specifically what happened is the cells that get damaged is the secretory cells.
Mm-hmm.
And those cells basically evolve in the fallopian tube, start proliferating faster because what happened is that one of the most important cancer tumor suppressor gene is P53. And you might say TP53 is the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
P53. So that protein get damaged, and once it get damaged, it loses function.
Right.
When it loses function, the cells they start proliferating faster uncontrollably in the
Mm-hmm.
fallopian tube. So now
Mm.
when they start
So that's
dividing,
how the endometriosis develop?
that's a different pathway, but similar.
Okay.
It's kind of similar. I mean, there's
Okay.
also so ovarian cancer. There's also cells in the endometrium that actually get mutated, but it's a different pathway that's
Okay.
involved in the endometrium. So when you get these when you have these damage to mutation in P53, the cells in the fallopian tube start proliferating.
Mm-hmm.
Then they get like secondary hits, right? Maybe like other gene get mutated because now you lose your regulation of P53 gene. Cells they start dividing. What happened is then they would actually break off from the fallopian tube
Mm.
and go to the ovary
Okay.
or go to the abdomen and then they start proliferating. So when this
Mm.
is happening, most females don't even know. Like sometimes people have signs, but they're like, maybe I must have a bad period or whatever.
Pain.
And
Yeah.
then they get checked and they're like, oh my God, you're like stage 4 ovarian cancer.
Oh.
And also the other problem is for a very long time, people focusing on the ovary, not the fallopian tube.
What? So by the time they detect it, it
It's
gone.
right, it's gone. It's
Yeah.
late stage. And one, we just didn't understand enough about ovarian cancer for
Mm-hmm.
quite some time. So now that we understand that the fallopian tube is the site of origin now for the majority of ovarian cancer cases now, and that's what I was working on in Sophia's lab.
Mm-hmm.
So then my wife had moved back to our hometown in Illinois, which is close to Chicago, 2 hours away. And I was trying to find a job in her home. Well, she's from a very small town, so
Mm-hmm.
there's no job for me there basically. And I'm in a big city place. So the closest place I found was in Chicago was this guy that was offering this position, um, Gustavo Rodriguez. And the OB/GYN feels a very small field. So he went to a meeting and he met the department chair at the time at University of Miami, which is Brian Slumovich. And he's like, "Oh, you're Gus. Oh, there's a guy from Sophia's lab who's applying to your lab. His name is Omar." He's like, "Yeah, he's a smart guy, blah blah." And then when I applied for the job today from Gus, literally, as Brian spoke to Gus, right away he reached out to me and said, "Okay, hey, come for an interview." And that's how
Love.
it all happened. Like literally, it happened that way. And he was looking at ovarian cancer, and the guy that was running the lab was retiring. So they wanted somebody to take over his position, and just got a brand new R1 grant that he could use to fund my salary and everything. But at the same time, while I work under him, I'll also be independent. So I have my own PI because that's all the purpose is to get me to become independent, and that's how I was
Mhm.
brought in. So anyway, so it was again perfect timing. I learned all the stuff about fallopian tube biology, and he was looking for somebody who understands fallopian tube biology. So I was like the perfect fit. So
Yeah.
I left from Miami. I got the job here. And when I got here in June of 2018, they had like a grant that was due in July, and they're like, "You need to apply for this grant." I'm like, "I have like 2 weeks to submit this grant," and I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" Anyway, I was able to write the grant in 2 weeks, and I got it. So they were like, "I think this guy has some potential." So I've written other grants. We started working on the fallopian tube. I was doing the stuff consenting patients, growing the cells from the fallopian tube, looking at how the different cell population are affected. And specifically, we were looking at our progesterone, our progestins, and vitamin D can be used as a treatment for ovarian cancer, more from a
Mm.
preventative
Why,
perspective.
why vitamin D?
Okay, I'm gonna get to that, right? So before I joined the lab, they found out that so progestins like progesterone, levonorgestrel, all these different progestins,
Mhm.
we realized that they can basically induce apoptosis in cancer cells.
Mm. So it's not necessarily a hormone imbalance.
Right. It's so ovarian cancer is a little bit more complicated than that. So
Okay.
so risk factors for ovarian cancer, which I wrote in this stuff. So some of the risk factors for ovarian cancer
Mhm.
is if you have if women get their early menarche, if a kid started a period like at 9 or 10,
Mhm.
the chance of getting ovarian cancer actually increases
Mhm. Because
because
they have a longer time
they go through they have more ovulatory cycles of
ovulation.
ovulation, and ovulation is very damaging to the cells in the fallopian tube,
Then
right?
that don't make no sense.
Right. And again,
Like,
there's also
because that's a natural thing.
right, it's a natural thing, but it also releases all these reactive oxygen species. So if a woman don't have a good antioxidant pathway and system, it can cause more damage. So it just increases the risk that for those people, right? So and also if you have kids, your chance of getting ovarian cancer it decreases because when you're pregnant, you don't
So
ovulate anymore.
basically, what you're saying is that women are supposed to have kids.
That's what the science says.
That,
All right. So if you have kids, you're not ovulating, you're breastfeeding, and at that point, when you're pregnant, your hormone of progesterone it spikes in your body. So what we think would happen is with progesterone is that when it spikes, it can basically cause cells that have damage to go into apoptosis. So this is one way how the body cleans itself of these damaged
mm,
cells.
mhm,
So
mhm,
also women who take birth control that have high level of progestins in them, the chance of getting ovarian cancer, it decreases.
mm,
Because the progestin because when you're on birth control you don't ovulate anymore, you don't have period, right? You just
mm. It's
no, but
not.
your ovulation is less, right? So
Mhm,
we know this. So then we have all this evidence that progestins can be preventative and all different things, and then we found it can be enhanced with vitamin D. So then basically when I was brought in to understand what's the exact mechanism.
mhm.
How is vitamin D enhancing progestin?
Yeah,
And how is progestin what's the exact mechanism? So that's what my work is about. Through
yeah.
prevention. Not because
That's very interesting.
yes, because once you have ovarian cancer, it is almost these cells are tough, hard to kill. You can do radiation don't work for ovarian cancer, by the way. So it's typically chemotherapy that they use. And they use
Mm,
like doxycycline or whatever, these platinum-based therapies. So so for me, again, in Jamaica we say prevention better than cure, right? I
Mm-hmm.
would say so my thing is through prevention, how can we find women who are at risk, and
Mm-hmm.
then we can give them this treatment paradigm to basically prevent them from
Prevent.
getting ovarian cancer. But the whole idea of the fallopian tube is very new in the ovarian cancer field. So
Mm-hmm.
first, you have to study the thing in a cell model, in an animal model, and then you collect all the data and say, okay, now let's go to human trial.
Right,
So
right.
I'm still early phase in like showing that basically that apoptosis involved, vitamin D can enhance the function of um, progestin by enhancing how so progestin can kill the cells, but when you add
Mm-hmm.
the damaged cells in the fallopian tube, but if you add vitamin D, they kill them even better. They're better killers. It's pretty cool to see this. You can look at apoptosis, look at like cleave caspase, you can look at proliferation, you can look at all these different things, and I've shown this over and over, right? So even with vitamin D, we take vitamin D. You get it active form, inactive form. And what I discovered was that taking the active form of vitamin D in the cells, they don't care about it. But if you give the precursor, like cholecalciferol, it is much more potent in actually killing the cells. And
Mm-hmm.
this is data that I published, and it's mind blowing because there are people I talk to who have been working in vitamin D before I was born and did
Right.
not discover
Oh
what I
my
discovered. And they didn't know the things I know. And they're like, oh my God, this is groundbreaking. But it
That's
doesn't.
why we need fresh minds.
Exactly. All right. These guys
Old
are like, are you?
people
And
just stagnant.
yeah, exactly. And then when I tell them my data, they're like having these euphoric moments. They're like, oh, that's why I was getting this in 1965 and 1980s. Now it makes sense. I'm like, all right. So that's pretty um, interesting to see that, you know. And so now, I look at how progestins and vitamin D can be enhanced. I was actually involved in apoptosis. Discovered recently that it's actually involved in autophagy. And if you heard the term
Mhm.
before, like oh, cell feed themselves can lead to eventually to apoptosis.
Mhm.
I also see it can inhibit cancer from proliferating, from dividing. Now
Mhm.
I'm looking at even another thing now I just discovered recently was looking at how different types of progesterone receptor is involved in lipid droplet formation, so obesity. So people who are obese
Mhm.
normally have a lot of lipid droplet in their cells, and lipid droplet is a lipids are an energy source for cells, right?
Mhm.
So I found that basically, so one idea is that progesterone can cause breast cancer,
Mhm.
right? That's one idea, which is we do see that if you take breast cancer cells and put them in a dish and add progestins, they proliferate faster.
Mhm.
And they're like, wow, well, if they're proliferating fast, they can cause cancer. Yes.
Right.
But then I discovered that there's a little more to the story. So the progesterone receptor in the cells, it
Mhm.
has A and it has B. So I discovered that basically, if the cell expressed A receptor and you give them progestins, they proliferate faster and they make lipid droplets. But if they have the B receptor
Mhm.
and you give them progestin, they don't proliferate. So then it brings to the new idea now in cancer that basically women, so and you heard about like they can be receptor positive breast cancer. They can have PRA or PRB, but how they look at it, it don't distinguish in a IHC staining section. You can't distinguish between A and
Right.
B.
Mhm.
So for years they just said you're pure positive. But does pure positive mean that you have A or do you have B?
Right.
So now I'm saying we need to go back and start looking at A and B, and that might
Yeah.
give some understanding of how progestin can cause later breast cancer, why obese people are more prone to certain breast cancer versus non-obese people. Not only that, the whole idea
And how could you, is there a treatment that could turn on or off?
exactly. And first we need to basically once we understand this the biology of the person's cancer, can we have a different approach? Because now we just say everybody's the same, and that's
Mhm.
not true. Because now
Right.
you've heard the term about like personalized medicine, right? So we're all
Right.
different.
Listen, that's what I wanted to do. I was when I you remember in high school when we were learning about Dolly the sheep.
Yep, yep.
OMG. It's like I was like, oh my God. I didn't want to be engineering no sheep. But
You
I
want to
was
fix?
thinking about modern medicine, these
Yes.
specific therapeutic.
hmm And,
Oh,
and 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 you must have heard about the CRISPR-Cas9 system, right? Gene editing,
mhm,
right?
mhm.
And you know that was basically discovered by mistake.
Yes, yes,
They were
exactly.
looking at
A lot of science, a
how
lot of
viruses
science.
infect bacteria, and then they discovered that gene editing and different things. So yeah, so now I'm at the stage now where I'm just trying to understand exactly the mechanism involved with all these things that I'm discovering for the first time, and how we can basically use that as a way to specifically target the fallopian tube cells. And that's
Mm,
how I went from neuroscience to combine neuroscience and over in cancer, and now I'm basically just in cancer field. And again, even though my PhD is in neuroscience, it don't matter because all the techniques are the same basically.
right,
From
right.
cell cultures, genetics to running protein gels, running DNA gels, I've done it all. I've done working with C. elegans, working with fly, working with taking out
Wow.
fly brain. So I have a lot of
Science is
experience with different
science.
model systems.
Science is science.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's basically a nutshell. So now I run a lab. And I'm also a professor at the University of Chicago. I have to give lectures there. No teaching, just straight up lab work. I'm in the
Mhm.
lab all the time. I used to be in the lab, but now I'm basically most times in my office. And I go down to the lab every now and then to check on people and help with stuff. And they tell me what they're doing. And I say, okay, do this, don't do this. I'm making figures and doing different stuff. And
Yeah, you're not micromanaging.
no, I have two amazing people in the
God.
lab and they do what they're supposed to do. And we come up with ideas and the good thing is that I don't live in a publisher parish because I'm at a hospital, lab is in a hospital, so I can really take time to think about the science
Good.
and then do good stuff. I'm not care about publishing like 50 papers a year.
I,
I want to publish paper that actually make a difference in science. And now to see
yeah.
even now, my grad school work, people like cite my work like all the time. I get all this email. Someone just like cite your paper because what we discovered with calcium signaling and pristillin, that was groundbreaking. It's just changed the field like significantly. So
Nice.
that's what I want to do. Yeah, so that's what here I am today
Cool, cool. Very
at
cool.
44.
Yes, no, your journey is amazing. But I hear a underlining thing as well. I know you talk about, you know, the whole Bible, this, and you don't believe in that stuff, but I see God throughout your journey.
Which is that's if you see him that's fine. I've been looking for him. I'm seeing him. I just see for me. I think we all have a path in life, and the life give us these cues, and we just don't fight the gradient, right?
Oh,
And I realize so far in my life, everything has always been about timing. You probably didn't know this, but did you know that Mr. Fulson paid for my A levels? You didn't know that, right? So
no.
exactly, it's all about timing. So from Titchfield getting into third form, it's like, oh my God. Then getting into college, then getting into grad school, and getting all this different. And again, people see your talent and they want to help you out, right? So people again tend to bet. So I always tell my friends that people tend to
Not
bet.
just your talent, though, Omar. It's your attitude.
Correct, correct. So I was about to get to like they see my I'm a person of integrity. I
Yes,
don't bias people. I'm honest. I'm
right.
nice to
You're
people.
very sociable. You're
Very
approachable.
social butterfly. Everybody knows I'm a social
Yeah,
butterfly. I'll talk to people anyhow, anytime, and people sense it, and people can sense that you when you're genuine. And I
yeah.
think because I've
Yeah,
maintained
because
those
we give off
qualities.
energy. We give off energy.
Yes,
And
100%.
even that goes back to you have godly values. I mean, you may not think,
Goodly values, goodly.
you
Put one
have
more O. Put one more O there.
huh?
Put one more O in I. Goodly values.
Godly values. But but I want to, you said one time we were talking like, you just want to be good to people and wanna. My philosophy is to love one another. That's it.
Yeah,
Love that.
through action. That's it. Through action. That's it.
Absolutely. Right? So, I'm on LinkedIn all the time and people are always talking about, just be kind, just be kind. So I'm like, I'm gonna put it a little further. What is kindness?
Right.
Kindness is not just talking nicely to people. It's action. It's giving what they need. Maybe you're a teacher, whatever. If I can, if I have the talent to teach somebody how to fish, but I am giving him fish. I'm not being kind to that person.
Yeah, because you're defeating the purpose.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, so it's right. So it all depends on how you look at it based on the situation. But
Mhm.
I always I tell people, please judge it by my action, not by my word. Okay,
Right.
that's for me is the most important thing in life is judge by my actions, not by my words. And the human connection is most important to me. Like how do I connect with people? That
Absolutely. Okay, thank you so much, Omar. This was wonderful.